Thanks so much again for having me. And once again, please donate, everybody. The title of the show is The Art and Science of Fantasy Baseball Auctions. Going to throw a little bit of art. You probably know me as more of the math guy, but there is plenty of art to deal with a fantasy baseball auction. And I'm going to talk a little bit about a lot of different things. Hope you get something out of this presentation. And if there is time, a little bit of Q&A. Well, we got the math, the art, the science, and we'll bring it all together when we talk about nomination strategies. A little bit about me. My name is Ariel Cohen. I'm over on Twitter, X, at ATCNY. I do the ATC projections, which are now available all out there on a bunch of sites. You can follow the separate feed at ATC projections to get up-to-date information about what's going on. And follow Beat the Shift podcast. That's my podcast I do with my buddy Ruben Guy. If you want to hear more of this kind of stuff and everything else, go on there. About me, FSWA Writer of the Year, Article of the Year. I've won a bunch of accuracy awards about my projections. Won the NFBC, my league, a couple times. I write for Fangraphs, for Rotoballer, and a bunch of other places. So check that out. Okay. First, I have to ask, why should we be doing auctions? Everyone's used to the snake draft. Seems like that's the staple, but there are some amazing points about why you should be auctioning. And if you haven't tried one, you should. First of all, it's more fun. I pick Lindor. I pick Bregman. All right. I mean, that's very nice and all. You get your players in your team, but, you're just saying a name. That's really the story. When you have auctions, you're having fun. 7, 8, 10, 20. Oh, I missed that guy. And every single player is available to you. It's just you're more at it. It's more fair because let's say you get the first pick. You get Ronald Acuna this year. I mean, you got to be silly not to take him, right? That puts you at such a big advantage to everybody else. I remember the days when LaDainian Tomlinson, talking about football, if you had the first pick, you picked LT. I mean, it put you so much ahead of everybody. I won one year. I had LT, first pick. There you go. It's not as fair if you're the 15th pick, if you don't like it. If you're the 6th pick, you don't like it. Auction, there is no, I mean, you can take turns nominating, but anybody's available at any time. You want Ronald Acuna, you got him. You got to pay for him. You got to decide whether it's a good buy, but it's fair. He's available to everybody. More action, like I said, everybody's available all the time. You're in on every pick. If you're in a snake draft and you're in a 15-team league and you're picking at the end, you pick somebody, and then you got to wait 30 picks for your next pick. Boring. Well, it's not boring. We're all fantasy baseball people, so we love it. But it's far more fun and more action in auctions. Absolutely. You can't sleep. It's also more freedom. You can build a team any way you like. If you're in a draft, you have to take a first rounder in the first round, and a second round in the second round, a third round in the third round, a 15th round in the 15th round. You can not take a first rounder. You can take 2 first rounders. You can build your team any which way you like in terms of dollar values, in terms of how good they are. It's just more freedom to do it. Auctions are more American. I mean, that's what it is. Apologize to our Canadian friends, but auctions are more American. Just freedom, action, fun, fair. That's why you should do an auction. If you haven't tried it, please do, and we'll help you in terms of what it's all about. Like I said, it's a blend of art and science. And there's a number of things that go into fantasy baseball auctions, all which range from the most sciencey at the top to the most art at the bottom, assessing risk and game theory. Then you got patience, timing, psychology, balance, a lot of different elements of both art and science that go into a fantasy baseball auction. As I do with any auction presentation, you really need to get used to the terminology. I'm going to throw out some lingo. So to get everybody on board, we'll do a little bit of preliminaries. And the 2 most important things, if I had to take 2 pieces of information, 2 numbers for every single player coming into the auction, prepare a sheet. What 2 numbers, bits of information do I want? It's auction values and market values. Auction values are your valuation of the player, what you think the player is worth. And we'll talk about how that might be generated. And market values, what the cost is to buy a player in the market. I know Ron Chandler used to talk about it's a marketplace. It's like a restaurant. You want this guy, you want a cup of coffee, it's $3. You want a steak, it's $60. You want to know what the price menu is, and creating that is very important. So we'll talk more about each because those are really the essence of what you need to prepare for an auction. Your valuation of players, well, what goes into them? You can use projections. You can use ATC. You can use PLV. You can use your own. You can make up numbers that you feel comfortable with. And then you have to have a valuation method in terms of what a player is worth. People use some mathy things like SGP, Z-scores. You could even use your gut feel. I feel like he's worth 8. I feel like he's worth 10. Like whatever works for you. This is yours. It's for freedom. It's all into your intuition here. If you want to go with gut feel, no problem. Just whatever it is, get the numbers. Get the exact numbers. Prepare yourself before the auction. You can use the auction calculator that converts projections to values, and maybe set a hitter pitcher split, things like that, all in generating numbers that you'll feel comfortable what a player is worth. On the market side, two different categories I have market values. One is AAV, average auction values. And that comes from actual observed prices, and ADP dollars, average draft position dollars. We'll talk about that right here. AAV, like I said, it comes from actual values. So, for example, the NFBC conducts auctions every single week. They post their AAVs. It literally comes from the actual auctions. You want to know what it costs to get Ronald Acuna? Take a look at what he's going for in real auctions. If you are playing the standard game of your provider, it is absolutely the best source. Like if you're playing an NFBC auction, you take those numbers as that's your market values. There's nothing better than what actual people are paying for it. Problem, though, is it's not always available. You might be playing a different game. You might be playing with different categories. Maybe you're playing points. So you can't use it directly always. But if you can, it's the best. ADP dollars, the term that I use for average draft position dollars. Well, ADP is the average draft position. It's a rank from actual snake drafts. On average, Acuna goes 1, Witt goes 2, Julio goes 3, whatever the current ADP dollar is, the ADP rank is. Dollars is the auction equivalent of what it is. How do you know what pick number 3 is? How do you know what pick number 75 is worth? We have to have a way of generating what that dollar equivalent is. And I'll give you a couple different ideas and methods of how to do that. This is very key, by the way. Like, your own values is number one. This is very, very important to get the menu of what players could be worth to set yourself up. First, gather the ADP rank data that you're going to use. And you want to then fit to some sort of pricing curve. You can either use a formulaic curve, like take this logarithmic curve that's out there for a certain type of league and size, put in your rank, look on the curve, tells you what the dollars are, and that's how you would generate it, formula-based. You can also use some prior year's auction results, and that gives you a curve. So, for example, going back to 2020, actually, it's the league that I was in, Nick Pollock, or I should say, actually, Nick Pollock wasn't present. Alex Fast was his proxy for this particular auction. So, I guess I was drafting with Alex/Nick at this auction draft. But let's say we have this one. In that year, Acuna went first, and he went for 48. Yelich went for 47. Trout went for 44. Nostalgic to see Jacob deGrom at 40, right? Well, the names don't matter. What we're really interested in is the curve, the actual dollar amount. So put a black mark and cross out all the names or so. Now go to the following year, the year that you want to translate your ADP on. And here's next year's ADP, Acuna, Tatis, Soto, blah, blah, blah. Well, you could just match up the rank and match up the winning bids, and that becomes your new pricing curve, right? It's literally could be that simple, right? 13th player here is Freddie Freeman. He 33. That's an example of what a supposed market value should be. You can blend a couple different prior years. Let's say you've got 2 years worth. I took the last 2 years. Well, just average it together, and that becomes your new pricing curve. You might want to also adjust for league settings. So, ADP data might be in the form of batting average, right? NFBC data, they're all batting average leagues. But what if you play in an OBP league? Okay, so first you set up your ADP dollars based on the batting average that that the NFBC would provide for you, and you've done your curve, and that's how it sets up. But you need to know what the ADP is in the OBP setting. Well, take your projections or take ATC projections, see what the difference is between the two. We know that Aaron Judge is going to be better. Look at Juan Soto. Juan Soto is so much better in an OBP league than in a batting average league, right? And then take that difference and throw it on what you calculated as the market. So basically, I'm saying assume that the bump on the market from batting average to OBP would be what a projection system realized. This is not a perfect system what to do, but the point is you need to make adjustments, and this is one way to do it, is to use projections to bump the actual market data. In the end, you're going to come up with some kind of chart that looks like this. I have it in a NFBC draft type setting where or snake draft type setting where you go around. And this is pretty much what I would put as a curve for an NFBC draft or auction. If I'm going to use it, hey, look, 7th round, first pick, 16.4. That translates to pick number whoever. Find out who's going at that ADP spot, and that would be the curve. And that's sort of how a full curve would look. Kind of pretty with the colors, with the rainbow. Okay, so again, your basic auction preparation, dollars, your own values, market value, and I like to put it together by position. So you have your this is from a couple years ago, let's say. Here's third base, here's your values, there's the market values side by side. Always remember that if you don't have all the money add up to the right money, 260 times the number of teams, you've done it wrong. Very often you do something wrong in a formula somewhere. Just check that it adds up to the right dollar amount. The worst thing you want to do is you come up with menus and, oh crap, we're $400 short. So everything was underpriced, or the reverse. Just make sure. Another preliminary, this comes up all the time. If your values say that Dansby Swanson or any player is worth 16, don't pay $16 at the auction. If he's worth 16, don't pay 16, pay 12. Pay something less. You don't want to pay the same as what he's worth for every single player. If you bought a $20 player for 20 and a $16 player for 16 and a $30 player for 30 and a $4 player for 4, and you did that all the way, you will end up with a $260 worth of value that you spent $260 worth, right? If they're even, if you spent exactly the same number of dollars that they're worth, you're not going to have a good team. You won't have a bad team. I mean, unless your projections are just ridiculously good. But, hey, there's always variance. But according to your own projections, your projected values, you're not going to have a good team. You're going to have an average team. The idea is you want to buy players at a discount or a bargain because you want to have an above average team. You want $300 for only spending $260 or $320, even more, somewhere above $300. If you're not getting this result, you're not doing the auction right. And the only way to ensure that is to pay less for players. Can you pay more for a one player too? Yes, you can. We'll talk about more how and why, but you've got to be paying less in general for players. That's the way to accumulate value. The way to search for value is what I call hotspots. Now, the way AAVs are constructed, right, average value is if you have Yandy Diaz is going for $10, for example, AAV. That means in some auctions he's going for 8, in some he's going for 12, in some he's going for 10. On average, he's going for 10. If you have 4 players with the same AAV of $10, okay, there's going to be a higher probability that somebody will be available at that 10, right? If somebody loves Yandy Diaz, okay, and you go to the auction and you have your market value that says he's 10, well, he can go for 13 because if some player in your league really loves Yandy Diaz, he's going to go for 13. You can't count on one player. But if you find a group of 4 players, for example, that have the same value, that they're all bargains, by the way, right? If they're all bargains and they're going at that same value, that group of players, you're going to be almost assured, or it's a very high probability, there's going to be somebody who's available at that AAV or even less, right? Because if it's truly an average, some will be 12, some will be 8, but somebody in the 4. The more players in a hotspot, the more likely it is that somebody will be available at the price you want to pay. How do you do this? Take your draft list that you've just put together with the numbers, color all undervalued players green. Okay. Elite players, you can color them if they're like par value, because you need a bigger bargain lower down than you do up top. You don't need that much. Even a 50 cents off or even par value is pretty good. Color them green. Next, take your orange marker and color highly discounted players orange. Take your red marker and color very discounted players red. And then take a look at what the hotspots are. Hotspots in terms of the market value, the AAV, what players are centered around. Well, in this example, there's a bunch of 9s. Justin Turner, Ryan McMahon, now those are excellent red bargains, but there's even some good green ones over with Moncada, Chapman, Donaldson. $4 is another hotspot I see here. All right. Escobar, Candelario, Urias, roughly around 4. Even $16 is an interesting little hotspot. There's some players around there. Arnado, Bregman, Riley, if he goes cheaper. This is a couple years ago. Riley is more expensive now. But that is a way to find hotspots. So, for example, last year, what were the hotspots at third base? Well, let's color them. There they are. $3. Justin Turner, Yandy, Segura. There's Yandy Diaz. Look what ATC valued Yandy Diaz last year and what he went for. Looks like ATC got that one right. And I had Yandy Diaz in a lot of leagues. I mean, when I pencil in the hotspot and I say, well, $3 for a $12 player, I mean, I was willing to go a little bit higher. I didn't have to in a lot of leagues, but I was assured of a really good value. But I analyzed it because I did these hotspots. How about $9? Another hotspot here, Bohm, Chapman, McMahon, and so on and so forth. That's the basic way to spot pockets of value and to set yourself up. So when you're doing your budget for your auction, first of all, always come in with a plan. Don't come in and say, I'll see what the room does. I'll go with what the audience does. I'll see how it goes. Why? Don't come to the auction unprepared. Come out and plan where you think the values are, and by position or by statistic even. Where are the stolen base values? Where are the batting average values? Where are the catcher values, right? If you have a plan for every position, that's the way to do it. And again, this is the hotspot budgeting. So what you want to do is find all the hotspots for every position, then decide on the initial targets for the hotspots, right? You may want to change your mind sometime later in the draft as prices go differently or you get somebody cheaper or whatever, but give an initial position. And you want to accumulate on your plan sheet, right? Call it a plan sheet, your budget. Make sure that all the hotspots add up to 250 to 8 to 260, like, a dollar or two less than what the total is, because you want to build an idea of what the story is. Maybe the $5 catchers fit into this plan better than the $12 catchers because you want to make the budget, right? Make a budget that adds up to 260 and that has all your favorite hotspots. It's going to look something like this. You list out all the positions, list out prices, the market values. Hopefully it'll add up to 260, including the pitchers, and list out all of the players that are in the hotspot. So when you come, you say, I think Contreras, Grandal, Varsha. Oh, I think that's going to be about a $12 player. That's the one hotspot I'm going to go for, or at least that I should be aware of. This is the kind of budgeting you need to do to start. So again, auction prep is finding your auction values and market values, finding the hotspots, and making a plan, a budget. That is the prep you need to do for auctions. Let's talk art now. The art of bidding. All right. This is a little bit more art than science here. What should you have in terms of a starting bid? When you're bidding, 7, 8, what number should you throw somebody out? Two kinds of ways you can do it is appear random, just appear, 7, it doesn't matter what number. Or what I like to do is uniform. If 10, 10, 10, 10. What does that do when you make it uniform? First of all, it actually is random. because if a player is 20, 15, 30, you don't know. I'm just throwing a number out, but it sounds very monotonous. People are just going to remember, oh, Ariel just putting up a player. They're not really going to start thinking, am I going too close to the number? Do I think he's better or less? Just something uniform. I want people to tune me out, right? I want people thinking, what's Ariel doing? Just uniform. 5, 5, 5. The more I phase into the background, the better. Okay. Should you start with $1? People say, all right, start low down, just throw out $1 because, why would I want somebody for 7 when I get about 1? Or should you start high up? The guy who has 25, just start at 20. The answer is I don't really want to play that game. I don't want to annoy people with the dollar. I don't want to bid too high for the reasons below. I want to bid something in the middle, 50%, 60% of the player's value, but sounds monotonous. For $20 players, I'll start at 14. For $30 players, 20. For $10 players, 4. Something monotonous, but something in the middle where there's room to jump. What about freezing the room? Should you ever freeze the room if a player's worth 30? Just say 29. Just go as high as you can, and that's my final offer. Yes, I've done it. It works sometimes, only if you do it infrequently. Don't freeze bid a lot. Freeze bid very infrequent. If you're trying to freeze the room more than once, maybe twice, you're not going to be effective. You're going to overbid. What about +2 bids? +2 bids are where a guy says 19. Should you go to 21 or 20? So you think you don't want to go that far. You only want to go $1, 19. You want to say 20, but you say, well, if I go 20, he's going to go 21. So I'm going to lose him. And then I have to go 22. Why would I want to bid $3 over? I'd rather bid $2 over. Is that a good idea? Does that work? I found that it doesn't usually, it works like half the time. Sometimes I win, sometimes I lose, sometimes the room stops, sometimes goes over. But no matter what, it makes me feel better, right? Because if it's at 19, if I go to 21 and the next guy goes to 22, I say, well, look, thank God I went $2 over because I wasn't going to get him anyway. So at least I tried to get him. And let's say you win him. Let's say 19, you say 21, you win him. You say, haha, there you go. That strategy worked. So no matter what, you feel good. Whether the person actually goes over or not, that happens half the time. But you feel good either way. So +2 bids are actually not a bad thing to do. Should you price enforce? If somebody looks like they're getting a big bargain, you're looking around the room. Anybody else want to bid? I don't want to be the one that bids and give this guy a big value. Should you? Well, the answer is you should if you can, if you think that you're going to actually bid up the price. You never want to make a bid that you can't afford. So, if it's going to cripple your strategy and you can't roster that player, don't do it. But in general, why would you want somebody to get a big bargain? So you do have to look around the room and take a look. I mean, I look around the room during an auction and I want to see, is this guy really interested in him? Look at the tells. This guy clicking his pen. Is this guy grunting? Is this guy, is he really, I really need this player. You got to make tells. This is a little bit of a game of poker, folks. You got to look to see whether the guy is going to bid. If the guy is going to bid, just yell it out. I mean, the last auction I did was in November. I filled in for the XFL. I filled in for Tim McLeod. And did I want some of those players that I kept bidding on? No. But I looked at the guy next to me. That guy needed a player. I just made him go $4 higher. What the hell? And he looks at me. He's like, you really wanted that player? I'm like, you did. So, yes, it's a good strategy if you know how to do it. It's his practice, folks. Should you bid on the 9s? People have asked me, 19, is that a good idea? This way people don't want to go to 20. Well, I did some research on some of my home leagues. No. Without going through the chart, actually, it doesn't show anything about the 9s. In fact, it almost shows that there's a difference between a 0 and a 1. So there is actually no truth to bidding on the 9 strategy. If any, bid on the 0s. So say 20, the guy has less chance of going to 21. It's 0s, not 9, if any. Very, very minor. It's really not that critical. It's not that important. But if you're going to make any case to bid on a certain decimal, it's the 0s, not the 9s. How often should you bid? A lot of people just don't bid. They only bid on players that they really are interested in. I think that you should bid often. I think that to keep them monotonous and to make sure people don't know what you're doing, just bid. Not saying every single player you want to take a break sometimes, but get in the bidding early. I mean, I'll take an Acuna for 3, even though I'm probably not going to get him. I don't want to pay $60 for him. I'll take an Acuna at 30. Why wouldn't I bid it? I bid on every player. I want my voice to be heard. I don't want people to know what I'm doing or not. So bid off. A couple of other tidbits. Scout players. I'm big on this. It really helps to know where people play in auctions. Are people stars and scrubs people? Does this person always buy Freddie Freeman every year? You want to know where you won't be playing. If I know that this auction is big on the pitchers at this area, I don't want to be involved in that area. I'll make a plan that has different values of pitchers. You want to be able to scout the players and know. Now, sometimes you won't know the players coming in, but especially in home leagues, which most of you play in, know your other team players' tendencies, know their bidding habits very well. Very, very important. I once wrote an article about that, about the labor auction that I came into it just knowing what people would do, or maybe it was Toutware. I can't remember which one I wrote for, but I literally just came in knowing what their tendencies were. And if I didn't, I found it out really quickly. I even went and touted some other drafts. Like I'll go to the NL and AL labor drafts. I'll sit through them just to see what people's habits are, so that if I ever play again in an auction with them, I'll know what their habits are. I do a lot of scouting. I'm not saying you should do that, but I'm saying that it does help very much. Some people have often heard me say this: hypnotize the audience. Yes, it's a form of hypnosis. What is hypnosis? Hypnosis is intense concentration with losing sense of where you are. That's what hypnosis is. If you're hypnotized, you sort of get lost. You're concentrating heavily on your one immediate task, but you get lost in the shuffle. And the way that I talk in an auction, the way that I inflect my voice, or I try to go lower or something, I try to get people to lose track of where they are, or I'll joke a lot, or I'll get them to laugh, or something. I want to get people really just thinking about a certain one thing, get them very intently there with losing track of the rest of the room. I'm aware of the rest of the room. I'm aware of what's going on, but just because I want to do it, using your voice in a certain way really does it, or talking or saying certain things. If you're quiet in an auction room, you're not going to hypnotize the audience if you're not seen. You need to be a presence. When you're playing poker, I mean, I'm sure a lot of you have been playing poker, you need to know how to run the room. You got to look around the room, see what people are doing. Play poker. I love this picture, by the way, this dog picture. That's what it is. You're playing poker with the room. So it's not just knowing the numbers. You can know the numbers all you want. You can know the players all you want. You can win the auction just from knowing how to actually work a room. That's really what it's all about. Most important thing is to have fun. If you're not having fun in an auction, if this is a chore, you're not doing it right. I'm not saying don't do an auction. I'm saying you're not doing it right. You got to have fun. It should be lively. Everyone should be laughing the whole time. I'm not laughing the whole time, but everyone should have a smile on their face the whole time. Let's go back to more science here. Market premium. Very, very important concept I want to introduce. Great man once said, an item is only worth as much as a person is willing to pay for it. That man I'm quoting is my grandfather, was my grandfather, passed away. Jack Cohen. He worked in a jewelry store. He was a watchmaker. He used to be the one fixing watches. He was the guy in the back taking them apart and fixing it, and it doesn't matter how small it was. And he was one of the best. Like when people in different jewelry stores didn't know how to fix it, didn't know how to do anything, they'd give it to him. So he would get the most difficult projects. He worked till the day he died when he was just about 90 years old, and he did great work all the way. He fixed all my watches, gave me stuff. Great man. Miss him very much. But he taught me the concept of the fact that it's really about market. What is a price? It's really about what the market says it is. And what you think an inherent value is, if the market is saying that something is in general, I'm not talking just fantasy baseball, any market, go to a jewelry store, go buy some jewelry, buy watches, buy clothing, whatever. If there's an additional cost above what you think there's inherent value, that is a type of a market premium. In fantasy baseball, this type of market premium exists because fantasy baseball auction is a closed economic system. It can vary by position. There could be a market premium for second baseman, for saves, for steals. There could be a market discount, right? It could be things that are cheap. It's also specific to every auction. Maybe in your home league, pitchers are valued very high. Nobody takes a catcher, right? Different phenomena go on in different markets every single auction to auction. One note, market premium is not positional scarcity. If you have catchers, and catchers really without a positional bump would be worth $5 less, you bump them up only because they stink and you got to take somebody. That is not the same thing as market premium. That is inside the value of what you should be calculating. The market premium is above what your formula tells you. It is okay to pay market premiums. This is what Larry Schechter would not tell you. Larry Schechter says, if you got a guy for 19 and everybody's paying $4 over, don't buy it. Just spend up to $18.99. I'm telling you that that's not the case. You can pay market premiums. If everybody is going $4 over, you can pay more than the person on your sheet. The key, though, is acquiring the value at a smaller market premium than everybody else. If everybody's paying $4 over, or the average market premium above is $4, if you pay 2 over, that's a win. If your value sheet says a pitcher is worth 30, let's say pitcher Blake Snell is worth 30. If everybody's paying starting pitchers 4 over their value, if you get Blake Snell for 32, that's a win. It's about smaller relative market premiums. Caution, though, it's okay to pay market premiums as long as they are small. If you have too large a market premium, that ain't good, and I'll explain a little bit more mathematically why that's true. But if the market premium is small, $2, $1, $3, that's okay to pay. So, for example, looking at 2022, if you take a look at relief pitchers, closers often have extreme market premium. And that year they had $3 to $4 market premium. Last year, especially after Edwin Diaz went down, that number became like $5, $6. Everybody needed a closer. They're scarce. People are sharing saves. There's saves on the team. Who knows with uncertainty? There's a heavy market premium. I think that the stability of the closer market is a little bit better this year. I think as far as, going back to, I can't remember what year I remember that you could really discern what the lead closer is for every team. It's pretty much there. Maybe the Rockies and Athletics, who don't really matter anyways, don't really have a set closer this year. But in general, it's good, and that will bring the closer market down. It's probably going to be closer to the 3-4 market premium than it was last 2 years. How about starting pitchers? Well, usually is a typical very high one. This can range. It could be 6, 7 for certain home leagues. It could be 1, 2. Just take a look what it is. How about mid-range starting pitchers? I've noticed that they've usually come for a little bit of discount, $1 to $3 discount. So you can actually get somebody at the price you want to pay for that. What about catchers? Looks like that year catchers went par value, pretty much whatever price I have up and down were pretty much what the market takes. Obviously, there were some bargains and low. Mitch Garver was a little bit underpriced. Kirk over there in the middle was Garver was overpriced. Kirk is underpriced. But on average, there was no market premium. I will say, though, that catchers, it's not a year-to-year thing. It's really more of the league format and your own auction thing. Like I've noticed in certain leagues, catchers go cheap. Catchers go expensive. Like it's more of an auction-to-auction thing rather than a year-to-year thing. But understanding the market is key. Understanding what the market premium is by the position, by the position tiers even, is very important, because then you'll have a better idea of how to adjust your hotspots and how to adjust what you want to pay to know when you can go over your values or not. Very important is what I call the auction temperature. I'll define it as follows. For a given portion of auction, a few player purchases in a row, the auction is hot if the average player is going at a market premium, and the auction is cold if the average player is going at a market discount. Are they going over values or under values? And that's going to be very different in the auction. There's going to be pockets of places where the auction temperature is hot. There's going to be pockets where it's low. Usually at the very top, it's more hot than low, and vice versa. But there are interwoven pockets in between. Take the auction temperature throughout the auction. Oh, am I in a hot auction temperature spot? Is the temperature cold? Where are we? Auctions are zero-sum games. There's going to be both hot and cold, right? For every hot section, there's a cold section. So if you're getting priced out of players because it's so hot, I mean, there's going to be pockets of cold, right? If it's lukewarm, it's going to be luke cold somewhere, right? There's always a balance somewhere, but knowing where you are in the auction is important. The goal is either make as many purchases as you can in cold spots. That's where you're getting a for sure discount. Or in hot spots, only pay a small market premium. You can buy players in hot spots as long as that market premium is lower than the rest of the room. Like I said before, you should not pay excessive market premiums. There's a reason for that, and it comes from thinking about net value in terms of pairs. At the very bottom of the auction, you're going to have an opportunity to gain value. There's going to be somebody that to you is worth $6 that goes for one. To you is worth $6 that goes for two, $7 for two. Right? You're going to be paying a low amount, and you're going to be acquiring players at the bottom for many reasons that are worth bargains. Right? The biggest bargains are going to be at the bottom. That biggest bargain, I find, is to be roughly $5. Yes, it could be a little bit more in certain leagues. It could be certain depth of leagues, sure. But let's call it $5. If you pay at the top a market premium over that $5, what's going to happen is that you cannot make a profit on that pair of players. All of the profit that you will make at the bottom, you will throw away if you pay that excessive market premium at the top. If you pay a market premium of $2 at the top, you'll get a $5 bargain at the bottom. You'll make money on the pair. You'll get the superstar at the top, but you'll come away with a pair that's going to make money. If you can't beat that, if you have to pay more than that max bargain, there is no set of players. There is no other player below to counteract what money you threw away to actually make money. Very important thing. See what the most is and go for it. I was talking yesterday on the Beat the Shift podcast. We had Bubba Entrikin on the show, and we're talking about, should you buy Ohtani? Let's say Ohtani is worth 35. Should you buy him for 34? Discount at the top. Well, the thing is that Ohtani would only fit in a util spot. That utility spot is often the $1 spot at the bottom. I want to save that for later to get that $5 bargain at the bottom. If I'm only going to get a $1 bargain at the top for Ohtani, I understand he's a superstar and it's a bargain, but that roster spot, I want to get more out of it. I don't need Ohtani to win. I need a bargain on that spot to win. And you're throwing away the ability to make more. If Ohtani is at a $4 discount, well, I'm not going to make much more of that at the bottom. I might as well take it at the top. Sure, maybe $3. You set your threshold for what you think is available. But what I'm saying is that when you buy somebody, you got to think of, what does that mean for the pair on the bottom? Very somebody on the high, what does that mean for what I'm going to make on the bottom? And can I make a net profit on both? Let's blend all of what we've learned so far, art and science, and we're talking about nomination strategies. This is often left for the wayside, that people don't really care. Oh, just nominate somebody that I don't like. Get money off the board. Whatever. I just named the highest player on the board. Such a very, very bad thing to do. You should always have a purpose. I mean, listening to Magnus Carlsen playing chess, and the biggest thing he will preach is, whatever move you make at any level, beginner, chess master, grandmaster, whatever, make it with an intent. There should be a plan. There should be a strategy. There should be a reason for doing something. Nomination is power. It allows you to affect the market. Let's learn about how that's so and give you a couple of ideas on how to nominate in your auction. A couple of principles to understand here. Some of it is science, some of it is art. The order matters. If you have some big rocks, some pebbles, and some sand, If you put the sand in first in a jar and then the pebbles and then the rocks, it won't fit. The order matters. If you put the rock, the big ones in, and then the pebbles, then the sand, it will fit. Order of things matter. Don't say it doesn't matter. It matters, right? Optics. Optics are so important. What I mean in a fantasy baseball sense is that when you're looking at, when somebody is looking at their draft sheet and they're crossing off names, this guy taken, your draft board has an optic to it. You look and see the names. If there's names crossed off below, you'll see guys up top. You'll see spaces. But the spacing of things matter. Look at this optical illusion. If I ask you what gray bar is lighter, I mean, it appears that the one on the left is lighter than the one on the right. And that's because the one on the left is contrasted against the black and the one on the right is contrasted against the white. They're really the same color. You just don't know because your human eye tricks you. I mean, I've done this example whenever I do presentation. I put this one together. I still can't see it. Like, what surface color, not the edge, the surface color is lighter? It looks like the bottom one is lighter. It's not. They're the same color. And I've seen this and I put together the slide. And even when I take off that box to see it, I can't actually see it. My mind is tricked so much because the differentiation around it, that blue sky background and the green and gold background of the floor, just contrasted so much that it just appears to be different colors, but they are the same colors. It's incredible what your mind optics do to you. What's also involved is economics. When you get down to it, a fantasy baseball draft is more, it's not just about the numbers, it's about supply and demand. You have everyone, all the players have to be taken. It's like you go to a jewelry store. Everything has to be bought. There's platinum, there's diamond, there's gold, there's silver. Everything has to be bought. The things that there's less of are going to go for a higher price. The things that there's more of is not. Well, those basic laws of supply and demand apply in a fantasy baseball auction. We're going to show you why that's true. Then another thing I put together is the economic box, is what I call it. The economic box is the effect of what's called extreme vertical differentiation. That means that there's a very low supply. There's one. And because of that, there's there's artificial demand. Imagine you go to a jewelry store and there's one shiny diamond necklace up top with a light sizzling. Wow. I mean, it just looks so good, looks so juicy, looks so pretty. Got to pay a lot for it. And especially in a scenario where everybody has to buy something. Wow, I got that one. I get a Ronald Acuna. The fact that Ronald Acuna is going for over $60 in NFBC auctions just speaks to the fact that this is an economic box in and of itself. He is so differentiated. So you got a bunch of those economic things and art things and optics, and let's put it all together. It's an example from 2018. I always love seeing these old examples because I usually want to see like the year before, but it's just nostalgia. Look what the top couple pitchers were. Noah Syndergaard, he was number 5 pitcher. Steven Strasburg. Oh, look at those guys. But take a look. Let's put them into value tiers when you're coming to the draft, because remember the AAV represents market. Everyone else is looking at the same draft board. There's a box of 4 players, a tier of 4 players, a tier of 3 players. Let's say based on your analysis, you say, well, the lowest market premium is going to be Chris Sale. That's my target. Ideally, I get Chris Sale. That's going to be the least market premium I have to pay, and that's what you want. Okay, let's talk about what would happen in an auction. Let's suppose Kershaw and Scherzer off the board, top 2 they went for, whatever. Who should you nominate? Remember, you want Chris Sale. Let's go through the examples of who you can nominate. Should you nominate Noah Syndergaard? Well, if you do that, you're creating economically more differentiation between the tiers. That means there's more of a demand for a top tier, right? People want it more. The economics say that Chris Sale's price will rise when it comes to your turn. There's nothing about Chris Sale that changed from 5 seconds ago, but other than supply and demand. Artificially, his price will rise. You have to be aware of that. What if you nominate Corey Kluber, go the other way? Oh my goodness. That means that after after that nomination, the supply of top pitchers are down to one. That's called an economic box. Oh, is Chris Sale still available? Elite tier. His price will go up, probably even more than before, because he's the last player in the tier. How many times have you heard the last player in the tier goes higher? Well, that's because people don't want to go to the next tier. So Chris Sale's, it's almost like as if it doesn't matter who the tier you get. Whoever's nominated last will go at the highest price. And that's so true. So if you want Chris Sale, nominate him. Because at that point, there's still two pitchers left, right? You've nominated Sale, so there's Kluber and Sale. Kluber following will be an economic box. So even better, if you actually bought Chris Sale, Corey Kluber's price will go up. That's what you want to do. Chris Sale's price is what it is. Like, it's not, because you nominated him, it's not going to change, and that's what you should do. And I said Corey Kluber's price will rise. I went last year to First Pitch Florida, and I sat in NL Labor. Here's the order of when pitchers are nominated. I put the ADP dollars, what I thought the market would go for, and what they actually went for. Look at the first three, no matter what. Strider, Burns, Alcantara, they went cheaper than what I thought because they were out earlier. The next couple, well, starting the elite tiers getting thin, they want more. And then when you get to the next tier, well, the next tier was Fried, Wheeler, even Logan Webb, who was nominated earlier than he probably would have gone, cheaper. So for those of you who said, I just want to throw money out earlier, bad thing to do. You don't, in general, want to do that. It's quite the opposite of what you think. Now, there are times that you want to nominate people you don't want, but not for this reason. If you want players, that doesn't mean you should nominate other players and get money off the board. The economics in the room matters more. And there's so many different things you can nominate. There's so many lessons to learn. I'll put them on the board here for you to see. We're going to talk about a couple of different things today about how you can nominate players. Let's take a look at something I call the Swiss cheese nomination. So let's say there's a tier. Here's a bunch of shortstops from a couple years ago. Let's say I don't want any players from this tier. I don't want this one. I want to play higher. I want to pay lower. Let's say I've already bought a top guy. I bought Altuve, middle infield. I don't exactly need a high-priced shortstop or a mid-tier price shortstop. I want to get rid of value. Well, one way to get rid of value is to artificially create economic pressure in the room. Don't say, well, just nominate the highest guy on the board, Corey Seager. Well, you're not really gaining anything more by that. Seager is going to go for whatever value. In fact, Seager is going to be cheaper than he would have if you nominate him first. Nominate Tim Anderson, Cruz, Edman. Create Swiss cheese out of somebody's draft board. You want to have this kind of thing appear to them. Now, Corey Seager will go higher. Now, Dansby Swanson will go higher. That whole position is going to actually go higher because I'm nominating him in a jumbled way by making Swiss cheese out of the whole thing. It's great because I don't want this tier of player. I want to extract more value. And, of course, what happens when this group of players goes higher? My group that I want is going to go lower. So I'm going to gain on everybody else just because I'm nominating in the right way. Now, you're only one nomination out of 12 or 15, but it all adds to it. It all adds to the pressure. Don't say it doesn't. It does matter. Next, we'll talk about what I call Plan A, Plan B. Let's say I have two guys from a couple years ago. Michael Brantley, this is your homage to you. Great career. Thank you. Two guys. Michael Conforto, who let's say you perceive is to be a potential $3 bargain according to your values versus AAV. And Michael Brantley is an orange type $5 bargain. So you want... Your plan A is to get, a $5 bargain by getting Brantley, and the plan B is getting Conforto at $3. Well, what happens if Conforto is nominated first? Let's see what happens. Well, let's say we're in an auction and Nick Pollock bids 7. Hi, Nick. Alex Fast bids 8. Eric bids 9. Miles comes in with 10. What do? Do you bid 11 on Conforto? Well, problem is you bid 11 on Conforto. Are you giving up the potential Brantley? Well, let's take a look at the two things. If you bid 11, well, you get that $3 on Conforto, but you potentially pass up a bigger bargain on Brantley. You don't really know if that's the right thing to do. What if you don't bid on him? Well, Miles wins him. Will Brantley go for cheaper? Will Brantley go for 10, 11? Then you'd regret not doing it. This is a bad scenario. Either way is bad, right? You bid. Well, is it the right decision? You don't bid. Is that the right decision? I don't know. And that's because your plan B had preceded plan A. You needed to know about Brantley before Conforto. What if you nominated Brantley for 4? And here are the bids. Nick Pollock, 5. I come in for 6. Jeff Passan comes in for 7. What do you do now? You obviously bid 8. That gives you a $5 bargain on Brantley. Sure. What if Eno Saris comes in bid 8? Do you bid 9? Yes, of course you bid 9, because that's $4 still bargain on Brantley. What if Miles Nelson bids 9? That pesky Miles coming in at the end. Do you bid 10? Yes, because 10 gives Brantley still a $3 bargain. The same bargain that you maybe would get on Conforto, but you'll get it here. So all the paths of what to do, every decision so far has been obvious. It's obvious what to make the decisions. That's if you have plan A preceding plan B. So you gotta get Brantley nominated for Conforto. Now, there's going to be a lot of players that you have like this, but if there's an important player that you really need to know, am I going to get him? It's a big bargain. If you wait too late and other players who are plan Bs come out before, you're going to lose potential bargains. The information about Michael Brantley's auction cost is valuable to you. Don't say, I'll get him later, he'll be cheaper. That information is more valuable than you think. Let's do one more, the Joey Votto nomination. We love Joey Votto. I said the auction's more American. Well, Canadians, here's my homage to you. Joey Votto for a couple of years had something like this, where I projected him for like a $9 value, yet he was only going for $3. But I don't really want Joey Votto. I don't know. I found a better hotspot. I think he's old. I think he's not going to play. I don't believe the ATC numbers exactly, or whatever the reason is. You don't really want him. You don't want the stats. You need something else. Let's say you've already bought Freddie Freeman. Why do I need Joey Votto? Right. But he's in the auction. So what do? You nominate him earlier than you think. That's a time when you want to nominate a player earlier than you want to throw him out, because if you wait and nobody nominates him and he goes very late, somebody is going to scoop him up for like $1, and his return on equity is going to be like 800%, according to the sheets. If he goes a little bit earlier than usual, oh boy, let's say he might go for $6. Like if you throw out $1, I'm glad to take Votto for $1, but maybe he'll go for $3, $4, $5. That return on investment will collapse. I don't want my opponents to get big bargains, and the way to do it is you can't do this at the end. You got to do it a little bit earlier. Throw out Joey Votto. Who's Joey Votto for this year? Be like Jose Abreu. I don't really want to buy Jose Abreu, but my value sheets still say he's worth $9. Throw him out earlier than you think. Get that money off the board, not because it's big money, because it's a big return on investment that you're collapsing. Question is who to nominate. There's so many different possibilities. Well, you got to figure out what the priority. Do I need information on a certain person? Oh my God, I don't want to let this guy get into an economic box and nominated there. I want to clog some of these DH. Let's Swiss cheese it. Oh, I'm running out of money. I got to do something else. There's different things to do. You have to prioritize. And so when you're going through the auction, you got to bid on the players. But the number one thing I think of is who's my next nomination? All right. Well, that is the end of the presentation. We got like 2 minutes or so for Q&A. I don't know if any, I can't see the chat here, but Nick, if you're there, I don't know if there's any good Q&A questions from there. Otherwise, that is the presentation on the art and science of auctions.